One of the things I wanted to talk about today was development and the reasons why some projects really seem to fly and others just do not work out. I think it's really important if you're working in technology to always stay abreast of the very latest, to know what it feels like to be on the cutting edge and to understand what is coming next. In this field, things move so quickly that you really cannot afford to rest on your laurels. You need to be able to understand not what's happening today, but what's going to happen tomorrow and the day after. And so it's very, very important to just always keep a weather eye on what's around the corner, to see what's up and coming, and to make sure that you know how that's going to impact you and your projects. Software development is a fascinating field because at the end of the day, 99% of software is imaginary. If you're going to build an aeroplane or an aircraft carrier or an oil tanker or a crane or a train or a car, those are all physical objects, and it's really easy to look at that thing as you're building it and to understand how it's developing and progressing, how near or far you are from the vision you had originally. Are those ideas that you put together being translated in the right physical form to end up with a final product that meets the requirements? With software, however, you're talking about something which is fundamentally invisible, and so it's very hard for customers to understand that the work that's going into developing this software is actually taking them in the right direction. You can go on to any large project anywhere in the world and you'll find that you've got a bunch of people working there who've probably worked on computers now for the best part of their working lives, and because they're so familiar with computers, that gives them the impression that they're qualified to manage and run software development projects. Of course, if you think about it, that's a bit like saying that somebody who's driven a taxi for 40 years is qualified to run a car manufacturing plant. What you see is really only the tip of a massive amount of effort that's gone into developing any piece of software that you use on a regular basis. That makes it doubly difficult when you start to realise that the different disciplines involved in writing a piece of software don't always share a common language. So people who are working with graphical elements of the system may not share the same understanding of the requirements and of the architecture as those people who are working on back-end or server elements of the system, for example. The difference between a really successful developer and one who's only average is their ability to not work on a machine but to get inside it, to understand enough about the whole system, not just a programming language or a development environment, to actually fundamentally understand the structure of the machine they're working on, to be able to get inside that machine until that machine becomes a part of them, to be able to make a mental model of how the machine works, how all of the systems interconnect, and then be able to actually run their code on the machine in their head. So it's really a matter of that depth of knowledge, that being able to immerse yourself in the technology, to really broaden your understanding of all the systems involved, to get your head around not just the high level, but also to really understand the nature of the various components components, the nature of the subsystems that you're involved in. As you start to add people to a project, the more communication overhead you add. And this is ignored at your peril, because communication is the nub of the success or failure decision. It's very, very important to understand that the more people you add to a project, the more communication overhead you're going to have to deal with. And in fact, that communication overhead doesn't go up linearly with the number of people. In fact, it goes up with the square of the number of people involved. So you don't have to get to a very large software team before you can be spending most of your time trying to communicate and very little of your time actually creating useful code.